Hetty Wainthropp first saw the light of day in a Yorkshire television film, I believe, based on David Cook's book Missing Persons.
That's correct. I was asked to play one of these two old biddies. I read the book, liked it very much. He's a very good writer. He wrote a lot for television, plays and novels. And what I liked about her was the get up and go. Here is a woman who reaches the age of 60, and in those days, even 20 years ago, people were liable to be considered to be quietly on the scrap heap when they reached a certain age. And she would have none of this. And also by chance, and people are finding this more and more nowadays, she found that she had a gift. Late in life, she found she had a gift, and the gift was for sleuthing, finding out about people and solving mysteries. And so she followed her instinct and made a go of it, and I liked that.
It's quite refreshing in this age of youth culture to have a leading character drawing their pension. From various feedback you've got, do you think that she became a role model for senior citizens?
I don't think she became a role model. I think it was there within a lot of people. I know that my own father had a great sense of adventure into his 80s. It was there. It was a wonderful generation, our parents. And I think a lot of elderly people enjoyed it very much, because, as you say, they do tend to be given a diet of what young people want and seek, and how they're rejecting a lot of the world and values. And so it was very satisfying, the sort of letters I used to get, but not just from elderly people.
As I say, it was first on Yorkshire television, and then the series itself started on BBC several years later.
Yorkshire television, after the 2-hour adaptation had gone out, asked me if I would be interested in doing a series, because it seemed to lend itself to episodic treatment. And I said, yes, of course. Then I think the television company got into a certain amount of difficulty with the renewal of the franchise, and the whole idea slipped away, as ideas do. They come and go very fast these days. And then much later, I think about 5 years later, the BBC expressed an interest. And I said, snap, yes, let's go. And so it has changed shape a great deal. And if you remember, there is the young man, the young lad that she picks up and actually saves from a potential life of petty crime.
Yes, absolutely. He was played by Dominic Monaghan.
He was played by Dominic Monaghan, and it was his very first job. He was selected out of about 200 young people who were interviewed and auditioned. Wow. And they got it right. I mean, tremendous quality, an impeccable instinct. As we know, he's now a bit of a film star. Absolutely. From The Lord of the Rings. An absolute joy. We had a very good relationship, very happy friendship.
He must have been a bit in awe, though. I mean, his very first job.
I don't know. I think young people may be in awe, but they try not to show it. I don't know.
What sort of help did you give him?
I don't know. You just do your job. We used to work on the scenes before we shot them, to shape them properly, to tell the story clearly. He was wonderful. Very intelligent, very receptive. But you try not to tell somebody how to do the job.
So that was his first job. How did you start in the theatre?
I began as an unpaid assistant stage manager the lowest of the low, sweeping the stage, making the coffee, doing the calling, preparing the meals and the cocktail trolleys for the Noel Coward plays and the Lonsdale plays at the Liverpool Playhouse, which was a wonderful repertory theatre. And they had the luxury of doing a play for 3 weeks, which...
Gosh, that was luxury, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. There were very few reps who could afford to do that. But Liverpool was a very vibrant city then, and is becoming so again. And they had their audience, a very loyal audience, who would fill a theatre for 3 weeks. I mean, as a young girl, as a schoolgirl, and as a university student, I went to the Liverpool Rep. I saw a lot of my theatre there, up in the Guards for 9p. Then I graduated to paying a shilling for a padded seat. Yes, more comfortable.
And who did you learn your craft from? Who were your comedy idols? Who was your mentor, would you say?
Well, you learn your craft as you go along, really. I realise that, looking back, I mean, I was always doing this. I had no intention of making a living out of it, but I was always doing it. I always seemed to be the one who was chosen to be Christopher Columbus discovering America, or Alice in Wonderland. And I remember at the age of 8 or 9, I looked round the class of schoolfellows and thought, why aren't these other little boys and girls asked to do these things? And I decided they were lazy. So I never had any idea that there was anything special going on. And then people point it out to you, don't they? They encourage you and they point it out to you and they give you the opportunities. And I had great encouragement at the later school I went to, a girls' school. And then at university, all my spare time was spent with the Dramatic Society. I did have a very, very great teacher. We used to call it elocution in those days. And this was an extramural activity at school. I gave up my Thursday lunch hours. I just loved it. I loved the English language and still do. And I realized quite early on, I think, the power, not only of the written word, but the power of the spoken word. The real power of the spoken word. And this is why it breaks my heart that the word these days is not spoken very well. Yes. Nobody speaks English worse than the English now, in my opinion.
Very sad,
but that's my hobby horse.
Yes.
But you, I mean, as an apprentice in the theatre, an assistant stage manager, and you get all the jobs thrown at you, and you understudy, and you also, I was also given parts I probably shouldn't have been entrusted with, but you also watch, you're on the prompt book, and you watch more experienced people, and if you're eager to learn, you soon apprehend how they get their effects, whether they're very good or not, why you don't consider they're good, or why you think they're very good. You just examine it all.
And who did you think was very good?
Well, later on, much later on, when I was a more experienced actress, I worked with one of my great idols, Alistair Sim. And just to be on a stage with him was an education. Now, Alistair Sim may be a little forgotten now, but those great, great Ealing comedies, which we now see at lunchtime on BBC television and ITV, absolutely. Great comedies, Bells of St. Trinian's and Happiest Days of Your Life. I remember, I mean, when I saw that with a whole lot of school friends, we wanted Alistair Sim as an uncle and Margaret Rutherford as an aunt. And so when I was asked to play his wife in Pinero's The Magistrate at Chichester Festival Theatre, I jumped at it. He was simply amazing. His obsession with